everybody, Randy Kertz here for Bass Musician. So I'd like to talk this month about approaches to the instrument via different instruments. The first installment, I'd like to talk about the jazz bass. So when we're playing an instrument, different instruments are going to have different dimensions, different body shapes, neck sizes, etc., etc. And this can affect the way that we play. Many times we may not think about it. We may just approach each instrument in the same way. And if we stop to consider the differences when we're playing, that may help us from an injury prevention perspective. So in this case, we're talking about a jazz bass, and the feature about the jazz bass that makes it unique is the thin nut and neck. So when you're playing up towards the top, which is where a lot of the heavy lifting, so to speak, the real playing will be done. Not to say that this up here isn't real playing, because it certainly is, but a lot of the groove-oriented stuff is going to be played up on top. There's a different approach than perhaps with a P bass. For example, a P bass tends to be lend itself to one grabbing the neck and maybe having the thumb up a little higher, or even reaching over the neck in some cases, or just kind of floating on top. And with its width and thickness, and depending on the player's hand size, this may be more of an appropriate thing. But with the jazz bass, you're able to really kind of shape your hand around that neck more easily and more carefully, simply because it is smaller. So the approach that you want to use, in my opinion, is the old sort of have the thumb in the back of the neck, in the middle of the neck, like so, which some people agree with and some people don't. It depends on your playing style. And certainly for that thumb to move around rather than be stationary or vice-like or really gripping tightly is more suitable. I'd rather have that thumb be moving around accordingly to what the player happens to be playing at the moment. What I'm doing now is, as I'm going from top to bottom, I'm letting the wrist sort of curve around rather than remain stationary, and the thumb follows suit, going down towards the G or up towards the E, depending on where one is playing. So this kind of a perspective and kind of a position works really good up until maybe we get up to around the 9th fret or so. Then the neck starts to become bigger, the angle of the wrist starts to change to accommodate the position where you're playing, and all of a sudden you can start cramping up here in the thumb, or have that wrist angle really bend and become a problem and become uncomfortable and painful, especially if one is playing in that position for a period of time. Like they're playing the song or the tune or whatever, solos, over rehearsing, that kind of thing. So when one goes up the neck, it, meaning in this case from the nut to towards the bridge, it makes sense to change your positioning and change the way that you're going to approach this, simply because the hand and the position and the bass is going to require that depending on what you're playing. So essentially I'm talking about moving the wrist and the thumb in such a way that you're getting constant motion rather than gripping or grabbing up to about the 9th fret or so in this case on this jazz bass. And then when you get there, even a little more motion is required to ensure that the wrist doesn't get cramped and that thumb doesn't get pushed back and cause pain there. When one gets up towards the top here, it is even more important to move that thumb and that whole wrist around in order to not cramp up. Generally, we're going to be playing solos or parts of tunes up there and not the whole thing, so that really isn't a huge problem in that case, but something to think about nonetheless. When one does get up there, depending on the hand size, sometimes when you get close to the top, it's even better to bring the thumb maybe around front So for instance, if my hand is starting to get jammed right here when I'm playing right towards the top, or maybe the bass is going to have a couple extra frets on it, then I'm going to maybe bring the thumb around front for just a little bit and play in this fashion, and then bring it back when it's comfortable. Again, these are all suggestions based on the instrument itself, but I hope you find them helpful. We're going to talk in future about P-bass and multi-string basses, and hope you found this helpful. Randy Kertz, always available at drkertz@drkertz.com. My website, drkertz.com, where my book, The Bassist Guide to Injury Prevention, Management, and Better Health, is available, also as an ebook, also available from bassbooks.com. And I hope that your summer is going well, and we'll see you next month. Peace.